Alright, so today I'm going to test some of the new DecoArt's mixed media products that I got. It's the interference fluid acrylics. Let me move you in a little bit closer. Alright, so I have the blue, the violet, green, magenta, and turquoise. And what I've done is I've just taken a piece of white cardstock and I've painted white paint, black, silver, red, blue, dioxazine purple, magenta, orange, and teal. And what I thought I would do is I would take a stencil and just tape it down so that it doesn't move on me. And I've already labeled the paper with the names. And I'm going to just quickly pounce each color. I'm going to turn off the camera while I do that real quick. Alright, so it goes on clear, and you probably can't see any difference on the camera. I just went down each row of color, and I've got the colors labeled on my paper. And I'm going to turn the camera off and just give it a quick dry, and then I'll pull it up closer to the table where you can sort of see. Okay, so you can tell that it really doesn't show up on the white. It does show up really well on the dark colors, and you get a little bit of tone on tone, but the purple did okay, especially with the greens. You can get kind of a tone on tone with the same color, like in the turquoise. It's hard to see on camera. It's very subtle. I don't know if it would be worth it. Might just get the same effect using a lighter color paint. But I do like them on the black a lot. So I would say definitely use them on the darker colors, which is what I'm going to do. In just a minute, I'm going to take the back of a set of pocket cards that just have plain black on the back of them and add just a little interference paint through a stencil just to give them a little more interest than being plain. Okay, so I added an additional coat of black paint to all the cards to give them a nice black coat, dried them, and I've taped the stencil over them just so that stencil's not moving on me. And I'm just going to pick a color and pounce it sort of here and there, because I'm going to try to do multiple colors. And then I'm going to switch. That was the blue. I think I'm going to switch to the violet. I'm not going in any particular order. I'm going to go to the magenta. And I'm not worried if I'm kind of going over. Some of the previous colors. And now I'm going to go to my green. Let me use the other end. And finally, I'm going to go to my turquoise. All my leftover places that aren't stenciled. Now I may, after this is removed, I may go ahead and try to stencil the parts where I'm not on the cards on the outside. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not leaving any parts of the stencil empty. And I kind of like the idea of hitting some spots with more than one color. Kind of a blended. Just a few cards that you can see that don't have much. That when it's dry, I'm going to come back and stencil. So I'm going to shut that off and dry it. Alright, so I had 6 of them that had some missing. So what I'm going to do is just lay my stencil back down. And I did get some bleed through. And I'm not going to try to match anything up. I'm just going to use some of my extra paint and hit some spots that didn't get color. I was going to also share with you, I have some DecoArt's Deco Magic brush and stencil cleaner, and I am just going to, because this is real sticky, I am going to take a baby wipe and just kind of take off some of that. It would probably be better just to soak it in a container with some of the brush cleaner and water. And I'm going to use a little bit of the stencil cleaner to make sure that the pouncer is a little cleaner. Since it's got that mica powders and dust in it, I don't know if it'll clog the pouncer. So I want to kind of, you can't really see it like regular paint since it's clear. And then I have 8 more cards that I'm going to do the same basic thing. But this time I'm going to try using my jelly plate. So let me get that set up. Alright, so I have my 3x5 jelly plate. Like I said, I have 8 cards and I have my brayer, and I'm going to brayer off on some black cardstock just so I don't waste. This smaller stencil, so I'll in a smaller stamping area, so I'm just going to do 2 at a time. And I'm going to kind of do 2 colors on the brayer, like the blue and the purple, maybe a little turquoise, kind of an ombre. And I don't want to over mix it. And I'm going to stamp right through. Because it's clear, I have to say I can't tell. I'm not getting a very good impression, but it looks like what's left has the pattern in it, and it might stamp better with a suggestive. But so far, I'm going to find a thinner stencil. Alright, so I'm going to try this again with a thinner stencil. This is one I cut myself on my silhouette. And I'm going to go with the purple and the turquoise and a little of the magenta. And I may be using too much paint, getting it too wet for the stencil. So it's definitely something you'd have to play with. I have to say I really like my brayer sheet. And you need to make really good contact through the stencil, so pressure before you lift up. And it does bleed under a little bit, so some of it is, it's just really wet. I kind of think I like what's left. I'm going to dry those and then I'll show you what I have got. Alright, so I have to admit I was a little bit curious how it would work on my larger jelly plate if I rolled it out and not as wet. A much thinner application. Alright, I use this stencil, and I'm just going to use a piece of black cardstock. See how it works on the jelly plate just in general. And this is a thicker stencil, so I want to make sure that I'm getting good contact but not moving the paper around and sliding. Okay, set that to the side, take the stencil off, and I'm just going to put this on the back of my brayer paper and just brayer over so I can make some good contact and let it sit there for just a minute or so. I do like my brayer paper, which I think would be a really cool start to a jelly print. Okay, so these I can see, and I actually don't mind it on the, it's not as good as a result as, like, say, the PBOs. It's a little more subtle. If you did a darker printed jelly print, adding it on there might be interesting. Here's what I ended up with the cards. So when I tried to just go through the jelly plate with the thicker stencil, I didn't get much contact, and you can see it's still a little wet here. That's why that's white. When I did the opposite, I have a little bit of like a brocade pattern that looks like. I kind of like it as a base if you were to jelly print over, say, with a metallic silver or white. That might be interesting. These are just the back, so I really don't care. I was just trying to give them some kind of interest. Here's the thinner stencil, and it did work, but you can see where I get bleed through, which I also experienced with the stencil if I was adding too much liquid. So I would say less is more. Let it dry and build it up. Here are the original ones that I stenciled through. This I got more of the desired effect. So I would say that I would recommend using stencil and pouncer. Some of these are still a little wet, which is why you see some of the white spots. Alright, so here's the front of the pocket letters. Now if I'll flip them over, and you can see how the back came out. So again, it's the DecoArt's Media Fluid Acrylic Interference, and it works best over the darker colors like the black and the purple. You want to go real light with it because it's very thin, and going through a stencil is better. Here's my little sheet again, and you can see on the black how it showed up. On some of the colors you can see kind of a tone on tone. I can see it better than you can see it on camera, but I don't think it would be worth the effort. I think you could get a tone on tone by using just a lighter value, or even a gloss gel medium over, or a varnish over the color. But that's my little review, and I'm going to go ahead and add a coat of the DecoArt Media Soft Touch Varnish just to protect these, and call this project done. Thanks for watching.